it looks like we're broadcasting. I just want to thank everybody and welcome everyone who's here with us today. At last count, we did have nearly 400 folks registered for this exciting and fun and informative webinar. So I'm not sure, I can't see all your lovely faces to know how many people are listening in right now or watching right now, but I do hope it's in the hundreds. So that's exciting. We will get started momentarily. We have our fantastic panelists here ready and raring to go, so we won't take too much time with this kind of housekeeping stuff. But firstly, I'd just like to say who I am. My name is Melissa Arnold, and I'm the current president of the Association of Fundraising Professionals California Capital Chapter. And I'm just so very pleased to be offering this webinar to folks today, a complimentary webinar, and a huge thank you to Keith McLane and Michelle Holman for so generously hosting this webinar and doing so. It was their idea. They reached out. They said that they know this is an important topic, and we said, yes, we would love to do this with you guys. So thank you so much. Because we have a lot of folks, we just want to go over a couple quick guidelines. First and foremost, we're all going to demonstrate professionalism and respect in any communication. I think that's a given, but we appreciate just kind of putting that out there and having everybody here today and following that sort of #1 guideline. We do have the opportunity to ask questions and receive answers. It looks like that's already happening. So fantastic. Please use that Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom screen. It is kind of on the bottom middle there. And we do have a fantastic representative, Nancy, with us from Greater Giving, who will pop in a little bit later and be answering those questions for us. And then if you'd like to do a chat, please use that chat box that is actually located directly to the right of our Q&A box. And if you make sure to set it to everyone, unless you want it to be private. But if you are sending out a general chat, just kind of want to share information, having it set to everyone will ensure that all folks who are here will be able to see that message that you've sent. And then just lastly, we are recording this session. So if that's something that you're not a fan of, we will miss you, but otherwise we invite you to stay and be a part of this fantastic opportunity. All right, so I think our administrator, Jeff Mildy, is going to jump in any second here and tell us a little bit more about what you see on your screen now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We do have an upcoming webinar on July 15th. It's virtual volunteerism and how to engage and utilize remote volunteers. So you just need to go to our website, www.afpccc.org, to register, and we hope to see you next month.
Rod, are you here with us? We can't hear you.
Yes, Melissa, I'm here. I just wanted to let everybody know that it's the 60th anniversary of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. And for our chapter is celebrating this, and it's actually a national offer up until June 30th. If you are not a member of AFP, or if you're paying your renewal for your membership, you get $50 off, and that's for any of the levels. And you can sign up as a member, as a professional, as a retired member, an associated member. We even have levels for young professionals and a collegiate level. So that offer is $50 off of your membership through June 30th. And I'm the membership chair for the AFP Capital Chapter on the board of directors. So back to you, Melissa.
Feel like we're on the news real quick. Back to you in the studio. At any rate, we want to get going. I am by no means our speaker today, but guess what? We do have two fantastic, amazing, dynamic speakers here. We have Keith McLane from KLM Auctions. I've had the opportunity to work with Keith personally and he's puts on a great auction, is super passionate about all the missions that he supports through his work, and is just a great partner in fundraising. So thanks, Keith, for being here today. And Michelle Holman from Greater Giving, same. I also have had the opportunity to work with Michelle. Greater Giving makes sure that you have everything you need for your special event ready to go, that you have a great automated system already set up, and that way on the night of, you're not stressing out, you're not running around, you're able to actually enjoy yourself. And so we're just thrilled to have these two amazing folks with us today. And without any further from me, I will let them take it away with their presentation.
Can I say one quick thing, Melissa? I just received a chat that some attendees are waiting to get in and they need the host to allow them in.
Okay, I think Jeff will be working on that. Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you.
All right, well, we're recording, so we're just going to kind of step forward. First of all, thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's really a thrill to be here. Wanted to thank Melissa and Jeff and Ron, of course, AFP Capital City Chapter. It's just a wonderful organization. If you're thinking about joining, if you live here in Sacramento, to be full disclosure, I've been an on and off member for a long time, but it's just a great group. It's really the who's who of fundraising in this community, and frankly, AFP chapters in most communities are the who's who of fundraising. So if you're thinking about joining, it's a great idea. Enjoy yourself. Anyway, kind of jumping in here, my name is Keith McLane again. KLM Auctions is my firm. Let's see, we started about 25 years ago in about fall of 1995, did our first event. This is my side hustle for 14 years. It's been all that I've been doing for the last 11 years. So I've been in this industry 25 years. The company's done 1,400 events. Actually, I've done 1,400 events. My company's done about 2,600 events. So since the beginning, so just glad to be here. And obviously this last 3 or 4 months have been something of an unusual, unexpected turn, but we've, pivoted like everybody else and have gained a lot of knowledge, and happy to share that with you here today. So looking forward to it. Michelle, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Holman from Portland, Oregon. I decided to sit in front of my window so you can see sun does shine in Portland, Oregon every now and then. We're having a beautiful day. But I've been with Greater Giving since 2002, since we started the company. We started the company as Auction Pay and then changed our name to Greater Giving in 2009. And had the pleasure of working with Keith doing many seminars over the past, I would say, 10 years, Keith.
At least.
And now here's our first virtual, so we'll see how we do this together.
That's right, that's right. Well, good. Well, let's jump right into it then. First, I'd love to see the survey questions, if you could there, Jeff. We just have 2 very quick survey questions we're going to ask everybody. So if you're on your computer, if you could just answer just 2 quick questions, so we'll know kind of who's here today. So the first one is, what's your current status with respect to holding a virtual fundraising event? Should have popped up right there on your screen. Maybe, and you can only check one of these boxes. You've already held a virtual event. You'll definitely be holding one, considering holding one, skeptical about holding one, or no way, in person only, see you next year. So if everybody could just click on that, we'll just give you just a couple seconds here. Just a couple seconds to go there, and then we'll turn it on and see what the result is. Pretty much people will have done it by now. Jeff, why don't we kind of see what the result is here? These are pretty quick surveys. So good, okay, good. So about 10% of you already held one, about 40% will be, 40% considering, 9% skeptical. Hey, 0 or no way, that's good. That's a good start. So thank you for that vote. Great. Second question, just real quick, let's put up the second question, Jeff, if you can. And that's, we're just kind of trying to figure out how everybody got here. Wanted to see, as soon as we get the second question up here, we'll be able to take a look at that. And just one more quick voting question. Is your organization currently, and you can check all that apply. This one you can check multiple boxes. Are you a Greater Giving client? Are you a KLM Auctions client? Are you an AFP CCC member? Or none of the above? If everyone would click that one real quickly, just kind of want to know who's here with us today. Pretty exciting. We had almost 400 registrations today. So I think, probably a few people couldn't make it, but we definitely have hundreds of folks on today. So again, really appreciate you joining us. All right, Jeff, let's see. What do we have here for the result of this survey? Great, so fantastic. So we got about half the folks are already KLM clients. Thank you for joining. About 40% Greater Giving clients, and only 14% are AFP CCC members. So if you live in the Sacramento area, we got this special going. So jump on board with the Association of Fundraising Professionals here. It's a wonderful organization. All right, why don't you clear that survey out, Jeff? And let's get rolling into the presentation here. So first thing I wanted to address is, what is a virtual fundraising event? And the main thing just I wanted to do is distinguish that from an online event. And really the only real difference, the way we define it, is an online fundraiser, or a virtual fundraiser is an online fundraiser with some sort of live real-time bidding or donating component. You'll hear later the Greater Giving software and auction management software is fantastic for either online or virtual events. But today we're talking about an event where you actually have a live fundraising component. And obviously we feel that makes an enormous amount of difference for your fundraising. So excuse me. So moving on from there, here's the big question that everybody keeps asking me. And obviously a lot of clients, just kind of backing up a second, we were scheduled to do 245 events this year. In the spring alone, we had 99 cancellations. Isn't that a Jay-Z song, Michelle? It might be. But we had 99 cancellations in spring alone, and only 6 of those went virtual, which is a pretty small number. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the timing and the not trusting that it would work and just no time to pivot. Whereas what we're seeing with our summer and our fall clients, and obviously next spring clients, well, hopefully we'll be back in person next spring. But for our summer and our fall clients, a lot of them now they have time to react. They're very much considering virtual auctions, but they want to consider, does this even work? So to that, I always say it's kind of a complicated answer. Basically, the answer is yes, but some fundraising revenue sources are working better than others. And so I'd love to cover that at first, just what's really working here. So as you kind of break it down, there's really 6 major ways that fundraisers, either virtual or in person, make their money. The 2 above the line are before the event, and the 4 below the line are at the event. So obviously sponsorships and ticket sales happen before the event. Games, raffles, online or silent auctions, live auctions, and fund and need are the fundraising components that take place at the event, again, whether it's in person or virtual. So let's talk about those sponsorships. So a lot of my clients are asking, hey, do we, it's going to be hard to get sponsorships. Can we still do it? My advice to everybody is you've got to continue to try. And yes, you're right. It might be harder, might not be harder. You never know, because some clients are actually not spending money they might have otherwise been spending. Some potential sponsors are not spending money they might have been spending. But it might be harder, but I can't emphasize strongly enough that I think we really need to continue to try to raise funds from our sponsors. And the good news, and frankly, what a lot of spring clients had, and even some summer clients had, is they already collected the sponsorship money before this health crisis happened and their event was canceled or postponed. And so what that meant is they enjoyed the revenue that they received from both sponsorships and in many cases ticket sales as well. And what we learned is people and organizations have a very different relationship with money they've already spent than they do with money that they haven't yet spent, that they haven't yet given you. So bottom line, many organizations benefited from having that revenue, but they didn't have the cost. They didn't have to, they didn't end up paying for their venue or the food or the beverages. And so that kind of helped out. But anyway, you can kind of see there that, sponsorships are still a very important piece of this, and you should continue to try. Ticket sales, again, a big question that's coming in are people charging for tickets to virtual events? The answer is that most clients are not. And I talked to a lot of other professional benefit auctioneers. We've done a number of events here, but I talked to probably at least several auctioneers a week about all these topics, but this one has come up many times. And most clients are not charging a price for a virtual gala. They choose instead to cast a wider net. They want to get as many people there. And obviously the hope is that some of the folks there, if they're not paying a ticket price, maybe they'll be a little extra generous when it comes to donation time. So that's sort of the hope there. And then clients who are charging a ticket price, really they're trying to offer something additional, be it meal or beverage. Either attendees, quote unquote, virtual attendees can pick up the meal, or you deliver their meal and beverages perhaps, maybe a gift bag, some kind of VIP access or special entertainment. But I really feel if you're going to charge, you need to give something a little extra. So now we get to the fundraising elements that happen at the event. The first one's really easy, games and raffles. You'll see my little picture down at the bottom. That is a jail cell where you don't want to end up. While there's some clever game ideas that we might talk about a little later if we have a chance, the bottom line is that the second you advertise or promote a raffle ticket or a sale online, you're technically participating in online gambling. And there's a whole nother set of regulations, permissions, penalties. It's state to state. All I can say is talk to an attorney. I'm not an expert about that, and I don't really have an intention of becoming one. So I haven't heard of anybody actually doing a game or raffle at this point. I'm sure somebody will figure it out. But so usually that's not a huge percentage of revenue anyway, so I'd probably focus attention elsewhere at this point in time. So now we get to the 3 main revenue sources for your virtual auction. And 2 out of 3 of them have been really nice surprises. The first one here is online or silent auctions. I know a lot of you probably already converted to something like Greater Giving or mobile bidding auction technology, and you probably already saw this 25 or 35% bump from paper bidding. What we're seeing is that bump is absolutely continuing into the virtual world. And again, this is what I've seen, what Michelle has seen, what friends of ours in the industry have seen. So these are I'm pretty confident in these numbers. If you've already converted from paper bidding, if you haven't converted from paper bidding, you'll see this bump in your virtual auction. If you had already converted from paper bidding, you'll see that bump is maintained, which is exciting because online virtual events are indeed working. And frankly, that happens if you do an online only event or if you have a virtual event. Although I think you're going to get more attention drawn if you have an actual virtual event with a live auction and or a fund and need as well, which we'll get into in just a second. Other big reasons for this is you get more bidders to participate. Bidding's usually open for a longer period of time. Bidders are notified when they're outbid, so they are drawn back to the software. And then automatic bidding max bid allows for, if you get 2 bidders who set a max bid, it'll just automatically rifle their bids up for them. So online silent auction bidding has been very nice. Maybe it wasn't a surprise for Michelle, and she'll come back and talk about this a little more, but it's a surprise for me how well that's been doing. Now, the piece that's been a little more tricky has been the live auction piece. Still worth doing, still making money, but what we're seeing is a virtual gala live auction returns are probably on average per lot averaging probably 10 to 30% less than what you're seeing in the room. And I see a couple reasons for this. The main one being that in-person live auctions are they're powered by energy and momentum and competition and social reward. Those kinds of things are just not as well suited for this particular platform, for an online platform. So that said, they're still working. However, most groups are choosing to do fewer live auction lots. I kind of feel like I could be the most exciting auctioneer the world's ever known. And still, if you come in with 15 lots, it's just going to get boring, and you don't want to do that. So a lot of groups are kind of drawing it down to 3 to 6 live auction lots. Or we have solutions as well. If you have more live auction lots, we can sell it by the board. And there's other ways that we can do that. If you're maybe a art auction or a wine auction or something like that, and you want to sell more lots, we have methodologies we can do that. We basically sell several lots, 3, 4, 5 lots at a time, basically. So that's how that works. Now, moving on to the most exciting thing in all of this has been the fund to need. And I got to be honest, when this started, I was very skeptical if this would work. And what we found is of the auctions we've done, all but one that I can think of, the fund to need has done more than last year and more than this year's goals. And in some cases, significantly more. We've had 50 and even 100% better returns. Obviously, the more you're doing, the harder it is to double that number. But a lot of groups are experiencing this, and other auctioneers are seeing the exact same results, which is pretty exciting. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that fund to needs are really based on moving emotions and inspiring people's generosity. And we've been doing that visually and with using video technology for years and years. I like to think back to the Jerry Lewis telethon back, what were those, the 60s? The Jerry Lewis MBA telethon, where it's a direct call, a call to action, where you watch the telethon and then you pick up the phone right then and make your donation. In the 90s, we saw the Sally Struthers and the Feed the Kids in Ethiopia infomercials. If you're Zolzine, you probably remember those. And those, they wouldn't have done those if those hadn't worked. And even today, you have the Jennifer Aniston, St. Jude's ads with the adorable kids with no hair. Those kinds of things, they wouldn't do that if it didn't work. And those create an immediate call to action, which is either pick up the phone or go to your phone or your computer and leave a bid. And we're seeing that is working as well as it ever has. Couple thoughts on that. Pre-commitments are more important than ever. I can't overstress that. I have a buddy of mine in Minneapolis who has, I think I have the 3rd largest benefit auction company in the country. He has the 2nd largest benefit auction company in the country. And he's really tracked this. And he says, normally you want 35% of your bids in your fund need to be pre-committed. With an online fund to need, if you can get as many as half, you're doing really, really well. I realize some groups won't be able to get that, but if you can, it's just super useful. And it's funny, the more technology we bring into the mix, the more important good old-fashioned fundraising, pounding the pavement, elbow grease becomes. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about getting your pre-commitments, people pre-committed to your fund to need. Couple other tips: hold your fund to need as early as you can in the program. I think some events are experiencing drop-off, some aren't. But in case you do, you want to hit people relatively early, probably in the first 15 to 20 minutes of your program when everybody's on, before they get distracted, if you're able to do that. And then lastly, the beautiful thing about virtual events is you can record it, right? And so if you record it, then you can send that recording out to everybody the next day and say, hey, our silent auction and our fund to need are still open for another 48 hours. please watch our presentation, and then hopefully you'll get some more money then. We're seeing an average of 10 to 20% more money coming in after the event as a result of sending the video out to your database, or especially the people who weren't able to attend your event. So those are just a couple tips that I think people found really helpful on the fund and need side. So moving on from that, there are two key elements to think about. So the next question I always get is, how do we even start to think about it? You know, most of you have probably done in-person events. I always say our team takes you the last 3 yards. We get to do the glory job of taking you, you know, from the 3-yard line into the end zone, and then we get to do the dance when really you took us most of the way across the field. But with virtual auctions, a lot of folks, they're not quite on the 3-yard line yet. They're trying to figure out, you know, what they need to do. So the way I've thought about this a lot, and the way I like to break it down is there's really two elements that are extremely important. And we refer to those as the watching element and the bidding element. So let's kind of dive into those. And by the way, most organizations now are utilizing a 2-screen solution where you have one screen, either your television or your computer, where you're watching the auction, you're watching all the action, the slides, the videos, everything, which we'll get to in a second. And then another screen, most likely your smartphone, but it could be, if you want to do side by side on your computer, open 2 windows, you can do that as well. But most often you're bidding on your smartphones using, you know, Greater Giving, Greater Giving or something like Greater Giving technology. And so you have the 2-screen solution. That's pretty much the way that most groups are doing it right now. So let's talk about that. I'm going to talk about the watching, and then I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to address the bidding, which is what I know a lot of people are really curious about. So from the watching, there's really 2 things you need to concern yourself. One is creating the video feed, and then the second is how do you post that up so that people can see it. So creating the video feed is basically, think of it like creating a TV show. So you really need one person. That can be a volunteer if you're using Zoom and have somebody in your organization. Or most of our groups now are using some sort of professional to do this, somebody who's familiar with this real-time editing software, real-time video editing software. And they're basically creating a presentation or a show that they put out there to the world. And that show can include live video, pre-recorded video. And by the way, most groups are pre-recording most of their video that can be pre-recorded, might as well. It includes slides, it can include photos, obviously the Greater Giving content, if you want to show a thermometer for how your event's doing or who your bidders are, whatever you want, that Greater Giving software, they've optimized screens that go really, really well into that to make those a part of your live presentation as well. So basically you have, at the very least, you'll have one person who will call the producer, the switcher, again, who can be someone on your team if you're using something like Zoom, or most groups are opting for a professional to do that. And then that's the person who's basically creating your TV show, switching the different feeds and the different sources on their own computer. Then once they create that feed, they push it out to the internet, basically. And if it's Zoom, obviously the Zoom software does a lot of the heavy lifting. Otherwise, a lot of these professional softwares, StreamYard, Livestream, Rstream, groups like that, they're pushing it up onto YouTube Live, Facebook Live, your website, some combination of all of those. So basically, they are getting that stream onto the internet so folks can watch that stream on the internet, and then they can bid on their phones. So the first decision then when you're making this has to be, so do we want to do it more of a shelter-in-place event, or do we want to use a soundstage? And that's determined by really 2 things. One is, what do your federal, state, city, and county governments allow? And the second piece of that is, what are your audience members going to be comfortable with? So let's kind of look at those 2. Just got 2 slides here, Michelle, then I'll hand it over to you. So first one is the shelter in place. This was a Western themed school event that we did, the picture down there at the bottom. And the basic difference there is that all the on-camera participants are in their own homes or offices, recording themselves on their own computers. And that's really important to understand, because there's a lot of cost savings here, but then you also run the risk of, you know, you're relying on whoever your live performers are, that they have a good connection, they have good internet speed, that their computers and microphones can handle, you know, and the built-in computer and microphone can handle this. So there's a little bit of risk there. And again, this can be done professionally or to be produced do-it-yourself style. Really the only main person you need there to do this is a producer or a switcher who's doing the real-time edits. And basically, they're, like I said, the person who's going, all right, now we're going to show the live video of Keith or whomever speaking. Now we're going to show this video. Now we're going to show the slide. Now we're going to show something else. They're the ones who are kind of controlling that. I would not recommend, if you're doing it yourself, having Zoom. You know, Zoom kind of goes to wherever the person talking, it automatically switches that. That's the most basic version of Zoom. I would not do that. But within Zoom, if you want to go that way, you can assign someone as a switcher, and I would definitely always do that to have someone who knows how to do this have more control over it. Everybody's asking about the cost. Costs vary widely here. Depends who you have, how much experience, what exactly they're doing. We've seen costs range, you know, from around the 1,200 range up to the $7,000 range. Obviously, the 7,000 range, they're creating backgrounds for you. They're, you know, it really, really looks slick, and I mean that in a good way for the right organization. You know, that's the organization maybe that's, you know, was going to have their event at the Four Seasons or something that's really, you know, where just the presentation has to be perfect. We've got some producers that can do that, but we also have some producers. And by the way, if you want any of these referrals, I have several of these folks who do a spectacular job pretty much in Sacramento and in the Bay Area. So if you want recommendations for specific providers of these services, just email, be happy to send you. And I know Michelle has a lot of recommendations in Portland. So that's basically the shelter in place model. The main difference with that and the soundstage model is a soundstage, you're more trying to create an onstage experience and get the benefit of all of your presenters, the synergy of them all being in the same room. And so that's where all the on-camera participants are together in the same room, more closely emulates an in-person stage experience. And then obviously there's probably less risk on the equipment side because whoever's filming that is going to be using professional equipment as well. This can again be recorded on site or in a professional, you know, might be your office or on somewhere outdoors or wherever, or in a professional sound studio. And then the people you'll need are the producer and the switcher, at least one camera person. A lot of groups are doing 2 camera shoots, then you need a second camera person, sound and lighting person, and then possibly, actually for either way, you go soundstage or shelter in place, a comments manager is a good idea. It's great to have somebody there who's kind of managing the comments and what happens, just to make sure that that's where you like it and to bring attention to anything that needs attention. Cost for this, again, ranges widely. You can get a very, very effective job of this done in the $5,000 range, possibly even a little less, but I know people who can do it for that. And then sort of the Cadillac version, where they'll, come out and film videos for you and, have everything just looking, spectacular, like a really, really well-produced TV show, probably more in the $12,000 to $15,000 range. So on that note, those are sort of our 2 models. At this point, I'd love to turn it over to Michelle, who's going to talk about the second aspect of this. Now we figured out how we're going to watch the event. Michelle, tell us how we bid and how we collect the money for our events.
Thank you, Keith. So I've been reading the chats come through and everyone's saying, slow down, Keith. Well, it's probably my fault. I threatened him. I said, if you don't go fast and give me just a few minutes to talk, the auctioneer in you. So with Greater Giving is your event management software. So as soon as we saw the 90 days ago this coming our way, we quickly pivoted, which is the word that everyone is using now. And with current clients, it was very easy. They had everything built in the Greater Giving software, and so they can quickly add their photos, images, and pivot. With our new clients, you're able to, with Greater Giving, you're able to build everything that you need in the Greater Giving software, push it out to the online bidding platform, and then also either do an online auction or a virtual event. So you have a choice. So what I'm going to cover today is mostly just the best practices that we have come up with and what we're hearing out there. And through the presentation, answer probably most of the questions that we're seeing come through in the chat. One of the questions that we often get is Greater Giving app. And the mobile bidding platform is not an app, it's a URL. So it's very easy to use. It's a responsive design. So if you're able to put this on your smart TV, as Keith mentioned, you have to have 2 devices to use this. So most are watching it on their laptop with their iPad or tablet or smartphone or their smart TV. So go ahead, Keith, thanks. And then the main question, how easy is this to use? So as we all know, we've got bidders from non-tech savvy bidders, elderly bidders, and that's a big concern because those are some of your loyal supporters, and you don't want to exclude anyone. So with Greater Giving, it's very easy to go in and just create your account. You're going to create a username, a password, enter in all your information, your name, address, phone number, email, and your credit card information, because you as an organization want to have that on file. And then what I'm going to do now is go into the bidding with Greater Giving and show you what's called the red carpet affair. So as you can see with Greater Giving, you've got the ability to go in and within the software, you're going to create all your packages. One of the things that I want to mention, you can also have all of your sponsors presented in your online bidding platform. So I'm going to just take a couple of these, and we're not going to talk about raffle tickets because we know we can't do that in California. Sorry. But for instance, if you wanted to go and bid on the Napa Valley back roads and railways. So you'll notice that I have it starred here as one of my favorites. So you'll have an option to go in. You'll be able to upload your images. Your dentist will be able to scroll through the images to view. And then also, as you scroll down, you'll have options. So you'll be able to bid the next increment. You can do what's called a max bid, or you could perhaps do a buy it now. So if you didn't want to ever come back, you just wanted to buy it outright. Usually this is 1 to 2 times the value of the auction lot. One word of wisdom here, and a live and learn that I've learned, is oftentimes you don't want to do a max bid with online bidding. We had one organization that had a great live auction lot. They had, they called it Keep Calm and Sip On. And they had an iPad. They had a, they have an iPad, a $300 gift card to Grubhub, a bottle of wine, a bottle of scotch, and a big old Costco roll of toilet paper, or package of toilet paper. It went for $3,000. So think about if you had doubled that, you would have lost money. So just be careful when you do your buy it now. You may not want to do a buy it now when you're doing online bidding. With your max bid, you're able to go in, you're able to set your max bid. So let's say I want to go up to 45, or let's do 28.80, set my max bid. Okay, and now the system will bid me up as everyone is bidding against me. You can also list the bidders, the higher bidder, the bidder history, and then of course you've got your description and your restrictions. Another question we get often is, what about, with auction packages, what about your live auction lots and basically your, let's say you're going to entertainment. So what we're finding now is with live auction lots, we're seeing a lot of entertainment. Of course, this would not be a live auction lot, but a lot of entertainment and a lot of travel. International travel is not so important. Usually it's about 2 hours away. But again, dinner and a movie, it's a buy it now. You can buy it for $50. How many would you like? We'd like 6. Go ahead and buy it and you're done. So another nice feature is you're able to scroll through the categories. So you'll have your categories, you'll have entertainment, experiences, and you'll set these categories up. We have the most commonly used, but then you can customize your categories. You'll have your no bid items that your guest will be able to go in and bid on. You'll have your multi-sale, and then here it is, preview only. These are your live auction lots. So it's preview only. You'll be able to go in and you'll be able to see these, but not allow bidding until you have your virtual event. So again, they're able to go in, they're going to see the description, all the bottles that are going to be offered, but no bidding. They're just able to preview this at this time. So again, one of the main questions we get is, how difficult is this to use? And it's really not. I was telling Keith last night, a remote control is far more difficult than using Greater Giving. One of the things that came out of one of our webinars that we do every Tuesday, and you're all invited to this, it's called Tuesdays at 2. And I do it with one of our contractors that I worked with, Beth Sandifer, out of San Francisco. We do it every Tuesday on our findings from the previous week. And the reason we do it is that we found that when we were doing a webinar, it was pretty much obsolete in 2 weeks because then it was shelter in place. So nothing was working any longer. But we're also finding great ideas from current clients. So again, one of the questions that we often get is, what do we do with our non-tech savvy bidders? So one organization had a great idea. They had what they called a concierge committee. And instead of being reactive, they were proactive. And they reached out to, they identified who these people were. And people don't like change, so it's a great way to introduce it, saying that we're doing something new this year, we're having a virtual event, and we want to make sure you're comfortable. So they would set a time to call them. They would walk them through on how to become a bidder, register them as a bidder, show them around on how to bid, how to place a max bid, how to sort by category, and just say hello to them. And they had such a huge success. So no one was excluded. And even with some of the non-tech savvy bidders, they don't want to call you in your virtual event because they don't want to bother you and don't understand that you're really okay to be called. So you definitely want to be proactive versus reactive. So Keith, I'm going to let you take back the presentation.
Perfect. Let me just jump on that right here. Going to jump that back. And then I wanted to show one other one other screen of yours, Michelle, right here. So just why don't you talk about the online bidding dashboard real quick, because that's so useful.
So the online, yes, so the online bidding dashboard, I call this the Wizard of Oz screen. So the online bidding dashboard, as soon as you go live, you're going to instantly see your top 10 bidders and your top 10 packages. And it really is fascinating. It's fun to watch, but this will give you a snapshot of where you stand at any given moment. So top 10 bidders, top 10 packages. With a traditional event with paper bid sheets, we would see industry average about 5 bids per paper bid sheet and about 70% of fair market value. When you're doing this with online bidding, we're seeing 12, 20 bids because people are using that max bid feature. And being conservative, I would say that most organizations are raising about 30% more in their silent auction using online bidding.
Yep.
But this is fun to watch. And then one of the other things that we recommend that you do as you set up your online bidding is 5 business days is the perfect time to have your virtual auction or online bidding open. So let's say you do Thursday through Tuesday. It's nice to open it on a weekday and close it on a weekday as well because people are in front of their computers. And so let's say if you did it on a Thursday, on Saturday, send out a text message to everybody saying, look what's in, or this is, don't say breaking news, that wouldn't be good, but say this just in, and have something fun that you're releasing to re-engage your donors. And we're seeing everybody jump back on, wanting to see what that new item is, and then they continue bidding because they're already in the online auction. I thought this was very clever. This was a way to support the fund-a-need by showing what the donor dollars were going to, equating it to what the cause was. So you can do this with your online bidding as well. It doesn't have to be the traditional, how much do you want to donate and give the different levels. You could get creative. And I think that's one of the main things right now that we're seeing. Everyone is taking the time to get creative. And as we get to the end of the presentation, we'll share all of our secrets that we're learning from all of our current clients. But go ahead, Keith. So Greater Giving about a month ago released our new thermometer. So the thermometer now is customizable. So it'll be your look and feel, your background, your colors. We call it the gratitude wheel, where it's going to show you real time what you've raised. And then along the bottom, it's going to scroll with the donors. But as soon as someone makes a donation, their name will pop up on the screen. The nice thing about this is that an auctioneer like Keith, will be able to see that immediately and thank them. So this really helps the auctioneer during the virtual event by having the thermometer up. It also does help to have the names. Some organizations choose to not have the names, but we have seen more success by having the names, and it motivates people to give. And one other thing I'd like to mention here is having that chat feature at your virtual event. That is probably one of the best things you can do, having a chat monitor. We call them a chat cheerleader. And they're just encouraging, saying, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Nancy, for your donation. Or Nancy, I know you like that. I know you love Lake Tahoe. I just saw, Keith's going to be auctioning that off in 5 more minutes. You've got a bid on this. What I saw the other day, though, that I thought was unique is one of the premier sponsors was also helping as a chat cheerleader. So I thought that was a nice way of, again, featuring the sponsor, but also just promoting the cause as well.
Fantastic. Michelle, before we move on to the next slide, really quick question for you. I was looking through the comments, and a couple good ones that are really perfect timing right now. Specifically, how many silent auction lots are you recommending? Are you seeing your groups holding in a virtual auction? How does that differ from a in-person auction?
So a typical personal auction, you would do, you would say, let's say for instance, you had 200 people coming and everyone was a couple for the sake of the story. So you would have 100 bidding units. So you'd want to have 50 auction lots. The sky's the limit with online bidding, but you don't want to do overkill. So we try and stay to about that. Now, realizing that you're casting a wider net, you're going to have more people that are going to be on the online or virtual event. So you can go ahead and offer more, but you really want to be careful because you don't want to go and reach out to a restaurant or a hotel. You want to be very cautious of that. And we're going to give you some ideas of what's going well now. But work on the quality versus the quantity, and I think that you'll have more success with that. So
Perfect.
I can't give you an exact answer, unfortunately, but
No, that's great.
okay.
Well, I just wanted to add too that one thing Michelle hit on was a lot of folks, you're keeping your silent auction or your online auction open for 5 to 7 days, opening it 2 or 3 days before the event and closing it 2 or 3 days after. It does a couple things. One, obviously, it enables you to promote and sell those silent auction lots, but also it gets people on your system, right? It gets people on the Greater Giving system, gets them to already enter their credit card, to be familiar with poking around in the system, which is very easy to use, but I still think some folks, still have some kind of concern that, oh, I'm not going to know how to use it. Once they get on, they realize, wow, this is a piece of cake and it's very intuitive. But getting people on the system before the event, before the virtual auction gala event itself, I think is just nothing but useful. So just a couple more quick thoughts and best practices. And wow, we are right on time here. I know I talked faster. We had a lot to get through, and we're going to get through it. We're going to finish right on time at 4:45 and allow some time for questions here. Some basic additional thoughts and best practices that folks are talking about. Keep it short. 45 minutes or less is ideal, no more than an hour. We've had events that go longer than that. And if you have something in particular that's special, you can consider that. But get your fundraising in there. Definitely at least get the fundraising piece in the first 45 minutes, possibly even in the first half hour is just a great idea. Rehearse. This should be pretty obvious. And that's another beautiful part is, it's pretty easy to rehearse this, rehearse a virtual auction beforehand. Particularly if it's a shelter-in-place model, so don't skimp on that. Well, another really good idea that actually Michelle had was seniors and less tech-savvy attendees. I get a lot of those questions. Are people going to be comfortable bidding on their phones? And the answer is yes, but especially if you train them. What a lot of groups are doing is, let's say your auction's on a Saturday, and by the way, I never feel like there's a better day of the week, even in the in-person world, but I really feel that way in the online world. There's, whatever day of the week you do, there's always some people are going to come. Some people can't attend. There's just no perfect day of the week, but every day of the week is fine. So that answers that question. But going back to the will seniors participate? Yes, they will. So let's say your event's on a Saturday. If you might want to have a training event, like hey, let's do a sample Zoom call or something where you're going to go over this, and Greater Giving even has a training video you can use. Get all your folks, particularly your big bidders, particularly your folks with whom you're concerned, about whom you're concerned that they might not be comfortable mobile bidding. If you have a pre-presentation that addresses that, that'll get, you probably didn't have any problems already, but that'll really solve any problems. So recommend that. And then cost savings. A lot of groups are asking, will we see bigger net return by saving money on food, venue, and beverage? The answer is perhaps. What we see is that a lot of the times the sponsorship money and the ticket price goes to pay for that stuff, the venue, the food, the beverage. So for a lot of groups, that's kind of a wash. So, you're both save, even if you make a little less, you'll probably still be fine because you don't have that cost, is kind of what I'm saying. So move on from there. The last slide on additional thoughts and best practices, stay flexible. We have a lot of late summer and early fall clients, and they're kind of saying, hey, what should we do? The good news about it, a lot of this can be parallel process, whether you're going in person, whether you're going some kind of hybrid event, which is the last thing I'll address on the next slide, or whether you're going pure virtual. If your auction's coming up in 2 months, you ought to start making that decision, maybe even 3 months. But if you're in November or next spring, you can retain Greater Giving, you can retain KLM Auctions or your auction management software company, your auction company, and we will help you with whatever type of event you end up having, even if you're not exactly sure right now what it's going to look like. Procurement, continue with your silent and or live auction lot procurement, even if it's more difficult or not that obvious right now. And actually, Michelle, did you have a story you want to tell about that?
With procurement?
Yeah.
No, I just want to share one of my favorite auction lots.
Okay,
so
great.
I love this because it's obtainable. And a lot of times you're thinking, okay, how am I going to go procure? I don't want to go ask a local merchant, which you have to be very respectful of that. But so one of our clients here in Oregon did something that I thought was just so clever. It was called the Trio of Happiness. So what they did was they had farm fresh flowers, they had pies from the local bakery, and they had a bottle of their commemorative wine. So they had 10 of each. I hope I can explain this correctly. So what they did was they sold 10 trios. They sold farm fresh flowers, bottle of wine, fresh pie. And what they did also, they sold it for $100, and Greater Giving it as a countdown. So you can say 8 left, 6 left. And what it was meant to do was to either, you could buy it for yourself if you wanted to, but they were promoting giving it to somebody that would make them happy, make their day. So maybe a healthcare worker, an essential worker, a mother or father that has been homeschooling their children for 3 months and needed maybe some pie and some wine and to look at some beautiful flowers. But they sold out instantly, and it was $100 each. So it was $1,000 that organization was able to make. And it was almost a double gift. You're giving to the organization, and then in turn, you're giving to somebody else as well. So that's just one auction that I wanted to share, because I feel like pretty much if you put your mind to it, you can think and get creative. Of course, it doesn't have to be pie, wine, and flowers. It could be 3 other things. But I thought that was very clever.
Sure. Fantastic. Thanks, Michelle. And on the just to add to the procurement side, a lot of folks are asking, hey, what types of things do well? Will people still buy trips? Absolutely, they will. You know, there's certain locations I might not do a trip to. International might be a little harder, but local trips especially. And I think, look, everybody can't wait to get out and to travel again, as long as the tail is long enough, as long as there's enough time on the end where they're confident they'll be able to use the trip. Trips are still doing well. Obviously, unique experiences doing very well. Dinners, you know, definitely dinners for 8, 10, 12 people at somebody's house. Those are also doing well. Really, it's the same kinds of things we talk about are still doing really well, even if you can't visualize doing it today with the current health situation. People are really looking forward to doing those things in the future, as long as there's enough time on it. So just wrapping this slide up real quickly, communicating with your patrons and donors. Can't emphasize enough how important that is. Don't leave them guessing. Let them know that you still need their support, that you're still fundraising. Make a plan. Everybody needs a plan for how are we going to meticulously continue to reach out to our donors and to our donor base. That's more important than ever. And then that kind of feeds into momentum, which if you can avoid it, you don't want to lose momentum by skipping a year. You know, organizations such as schools always have a built-in audience, but other organizations want to make sure their patrons don't lose interest and go somewhere else. You skip a year, and then their interest wanders. They're off to supporting a couple other nonprofits, and then next thing you know, you're hitting them up, and they're kind of over you. Don't let that happen. That's another real strong reason for jumping in on a virtual event. So we are right on time here. Yeah.
Can I add? So
Please.
I would say out of all of our clients at Greater Giving, we had very, very few cancel, most postponed. So, and that's definitely, you don't want to cancel because people are giving, they want to give. The funded needs are making more than they've ever made. Sometimes they're doubling. Even, you know, Beth Sandifer said she had one organization tripled their funded need. So you want your donors to know that you still are out there, you're still fundraising, you still have that need. So whatever you do, don't cancel, do something. Doesn't, you know, necessarily if you don't want to do virtual or online, but do something to let your donors know that you still appreciate them and still are fundraising.
That's absolutely right, Michelle. And a lot of patrons, you know, everybody's thinking, oh, it's the lockdown, nobody has any money. Surprisingly, a lot of folks still have a lot of money. You know, I heard a great stat the other day, which was 85% of the wealth in this country. I haven't verified this, but I'm sure it's about true. 85% of the wealth in this country is controlled by people 55 and older. So there's a lot of folks out there. They've already put their kids through school, you know, and they're frankly not spending money. They'd be cruising and traveling and going out to dinner and quote unquote spending their kids' inheritance. And a lot of folks, they're not spending that money. That money is meant for you, so go get it. So that's a really important piece of this. The last thing I want to address, this is our last slide before we go to Q&A, is what will the future hold? That's what everybody's asking. Obviously, we don't know, but prognosticating here, you know, they're just the evidence is in. There seems to be a lot of movement towards outdoor events. You know, I think when this first came out, people were, you know, there was a lot we just didn't know, and I think now there's a lot more that we do know. And not that it's impossible to transfer this thing outdoors, but it's incredibly less likely. Everybody's saying so. You look at recent examples and recent things that have happened, and you know, just an incredibly small number of folks are getting this thing from being outside. So outdoor in-person galas, I think, are going to come back smaller at first and then growing. Virtual galas, in-person galas, and then hybrid galas is the second thing we're going to start seeing. I think Michelle up there in Portland's already seeing some of those. I haven't seen one yet. We thought we had one, but it didn't quite happen because the county didn't open. Sacramento County wouldn't allow it, so they had to cancel or postpone, I should say. But basically, with hybrid events, we're talking about events where there's a live audience component as well as a simulcast, you know, video component as well. So I think we're going to start seeing virtual events with small satellite gathering at people's houses. This was the event for a local Parkway Foundation here in Sacramento. They were all set to have, basically they had 250 people who had bought 25 tables, so 10 people to a table. And they just basically called each table, the manager at each table, and said, hey, guess what? We're not doing this on the parkway. Now we're doing it at your house. So you're holding a party for 10 people, socially distanced, masks outside. We're going to deliver you the food and the wine. We're going to get on for it's a 3-hour party. We're just going to get on for half an hour, do a few quick presentations, and Keith's going to ask for money for 10 minutes. Then you can kind of keep the Zoom on and see how everybody else's party is doing. I think that's going to be a great way. And as soon as cities and counties start opening up, I think we're going to see a lot of those types of events, just because I think the perception is among a lot of folks that that's a pretty safe way. That's a very, very low risk way to proceed. And sounds like a lot of fun, right? A dinner party for 10 or 12 people with a you know, all kind of connected digitally. Sounds like a fun event. So I think then we're going to start seeing hybrid, smaller in-person galas, perhaps 50 to 100 socially distanced people at the event, with another, who knows, 100, 500 people watching and bidding online. And the auctioneer can take bids both from the room and online, either from a screen or from somebody watching the screen who's actually bidding. The auction industry has been doing this for 25 or 30 years. It's relatively new to the benefit auction industry, but I think it's going to come on very strong as people sort of wean back into what they feel safe doing. And then lastly, I think there's no doubt we're going to see return of larger in-person galas, but I think a lot of those, even your normal large in-person gala, why not have a video component? Now that the technology is coming out and every month it's just getting better and better. And, you know, a lot of groups are going to feel, hey, let's have our live event. But then if some people are overseas or they can't make it, or maybe an event's just not their thing, they can join virtually and donate that way as well. So I appreciate you tolerating my quick talking here. We got through a lot of information. We're only a couple minutes late, which I'm thrilled with. Let's go to questions. Oh, by the way, this is one example of what some kind of socially distanced event might look like, right? Everybody's got their little pod there, kind of keep people, you know, their little group. So there's a ton of examples of those, but I like this slide.
Yeah, this is pretty extreme, but this is something that one of our clients is doing in Golden Gate Park. And so they have all of their sponsors, and they're getting each a luxury tent. And so they were, I think their hotel was, or their venue was pretty expensive. So they're just turning that over to luxury tents, and super clever. But I think what we're going to see, just based on what you said, Keith, the mini gatherings, I'm pretty sure, are going to be the most popular, with sponsors having people in their own homes. And then you can actually go ahead and you can charge for a ticket because you're providing food, and you can again support your local caterer.
You can charge for a ticket. They sound like fun. And you bring back that, for lack of a better term, that social pressure or that friendly pressure element. Even if you're not, you know, bidding in front of a room of 300, 400, 500 people, you're still bidding in a small group of 10 folks. If everyone else is donating in the fund and need, you're going to feel, you know, we always say that's the right amount of pressure. It's not crushing pressure, but it's also a little bit of, you know, encouragement. If everybody else is bidding, yeah, I'll make a fun donation right here. So I think that's I agree that that's what we're going to see. So on that note, let's go to the question part right here. I'm gonna undo the slide here so I can see the comments. Let me just do that.
Well, I think Nancy's gonna read off some comments and some chats, not comments, but questions and answers.
Great.
Yes. So can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you, Nancy.
Okay. So one gal has a question. Can you discuss the functionality of mobile bidding for a live auction lot for a virtual gala? How does the auctioneer see the live auction bid? Do they see it like they see the fund in need bid?
Yes. Do you want to address that, Michelle?
Yes, you do. You see it, and actually Keith will be able to see the bidding history on there too. So he'll be able to see in real time who's bidding on a live auction lot. And then Keith has, I think you do several different ways. Keith, do you close in blocks or close one at a time, depending on what the organization would like? So but you are able to see real time the bidding history and the top bidder, of course.
Yeah, and I can do that. I've done it a couple ways. I've had it where I'm watching on my phone, but I like it especially if you're doing a sound studio model. We have a screen. You put a screen right up there near the camera, like a big screen TV, and you can run a separate Greater Giving feed to that, so I can see where we are towards our goal. I can see who's bidding. I can see how much. You know, so yeah, so the Greater, it's easy in general, but Greater Giving makes it very easy to kind of watch and see what's going on and be able to lead the live auction effectively. Now, a follow-on question that everybody's asking about is latency. So the good news is the Greater Giving software is immediate. You know, it's basically immediate, so I can see that right away. The one thing we want to figure out always beforehand is the video can be the unknown, because, you know, putting Greater Giving's ones and zeros through the internet pipes is very, very quick, because it's not that much data. Whereas, as you know, video is a ton of data going through. And even if we're in a sound studio and we speed it up really quick, You don't know how long the video is going to take to get into somebody's home so they can see. So what we always do is a test beforehand. We can kind of test that. And if there is latency, then the auction becomes more of a closing facilitator. So you really want someone who knows how to A, figure this out, and then B, do this. So you're not saying, I'm at 4,500 looking for 5,000. Sometimes you can say that, but sometimes you wouldn't want to say that. You want to say, hey, folks, we're coming up on it. Check your screen for the latest bid. You know, if there's a latency issue, you'll say different things and you'll work it a little bit of a different way. Again, things that experience kind of will show you.
Okay, I've got another one.
Okay.
Are you finding success influenced by the mission more than with live events? In other words, are agencies focused on homelessness and feeding the hungry more likely to be successful right now than others?
I'll talk to that. I'll start with that. I think that everybody, you know, there's folks are generous now and there's a need for everything. That said, if you have the opportunity to, let me just say, bend your organization to our need is greater than ever, I don't think that can hurt you. You know, when we had the fires up here in Northern California, a lot of my groups, you know, for example, a Humane Society group up in the northern part of Northern California, you know, they do a lot of things, but they were focusing their funding mission on, hey, fire relief has meant that we have twice as many animals, or, you know, so depending on your organization, you know, I mean, we are seeing that obviously, you know, domestic DV groups, domestic violence groups, you know, homeless, all the social services, you know, homeless, women and children's events, you know, foster youth events. There's so many events that are having a bigger need as a result of COVID, you know, and I think there's a way to find that balance where you're sensitive to that. You never want to feel it or come across as exploitative, but also I think you're smart, you know, it can only help you to leverage that in a very thoughtful and sensitive way. So.
But Keith, don't you feel that their donors are loyal to them as well? So when they're fundraising, donors are typically that have been with you for years and years, or even donors that you have in a database that have not been with you for years and years. We had one organization here in Portland that they had 36% of their donations came from people that they had not heard of in 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
So that said, that's casting the broader net.
Yeah. No, I think the mission is equally important in an in-person or a virtual gala, but putting the word out there, you know, if you can bend it a little bit towards to have folks help, that they're especially helping now in this really important time, that can never hurt.
Okay, I've got another one. So it's kind of a combination of two. So are you seeing breakout groups, you know, friends watching the gala together and also maybe competing against each other to raise money before the event?
Yeah, I'm not seeing that yet. I think we're going to be seeing that. Where we are in Northern California here, and particularly in San Francisco and Sacramento, we're pretty shelter in place still. I mean, and even though the rules are loosening up a little bit still, just this last weekend, that client was trying to do something like that and they were not allowed to. The county was like, nope, you can't have groups, even if it's in your backyard. You can't have 10, their recommendation was not to have 10 people together in someone's backyard. So my answer to that would be not yet, but I think we are absolutely going to be seeing that. What do you think, Michelle?
I think the same thing. We're not seeing it yet. I still think that until there's a vaccine, then I think people are going to be very cautious. I think that people that elderly, underlying conditions, living with somebody with an underlying condition, which is a lot of our organizations, are going to be hesitant to go to events. So the mini gatherings are going to be very popular. As far as the competition, such a great idea. You may as well have a competition. Everybody's competitive when you get to an event, right? So I think that's brilliant and it's creative.
And that's kind of where the comment section can kind of come in, particularly if you talk to your board members in advance. And, you know, depending, I mean, obviously you don't want to have your board member nagging somebody online that wouldn't think it's fun. But, you know, some groups, like some guys or some guys or gals or folks like seeing their name in the comment section. You know, if you can get one of your board members to bug his buddy, who we all know is going to love being bugged, you know, in the comment section, hey, Jim, haven't seen your name yet. You know, obviously you want to be sensitive about that, but there's certain ways you can have the comment section sort of encourage that as well. Because I think the comment section sort of makes this all a little more interactive.
Oh, sorry, Keith. One other thing I forgot to mention is that virtual events, one of our event planner that we work with, she asked people to send in photos. And so throughout the virtual event, sending in photos of where you are, what you're drinking, your slippers, whatever that may be with your puppy. And then she posts them at the end in a slideshow, and people love to see their picture and they love to see their friends. And so she posts them as credits at the end of the virtual event, which brings it back to home.
What a great idea.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Great. Well, let me just say we're about at 5 o'clock here, but Michelle and I don't have anywhere to go. I don't know if our organizers, if the folks at AFP, if they want to sort of say any words, then we'll stay on afterwards. But I just don't know if you want to do an official wrap here at 5 o'clock or not. If you do, Jeff, anybody just steal the screen and jump on in.
All right, are we back?
Looks like we are. You're on, Melissa. And again, we'll hang on as long as we need to here.
Okay, cool. Well, that's fantastic. That's very generous of Keith and Michelle to hang on and hang out. I'm sure they probably have like a bottle of wine or a cocktail that we can't see that they're going to bust out and have a little happy hour session.
Melissa knows me too well. Oh.
Are we allowed to do that yet?
5:01, I think yes.
5 o'clock somewhere, okay. 5 o'clock
we'll
right
do
here.
It if everybody else does it.
Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to join us today and be a part of this. It looks like we landed here at ending at nearly 200 participants, so that's fantastic.
Right.
Oh, that's good.
For those who are not local AFP members of our California Capital Chapter and you are interested in learning about the various offerings, please visit us at afpccc.org. We do offer monthly educational offerings. We offer a ton of additional ad hoc. We have a weekly gathering just to kind of hang out and just to chat and just to check in with one another. Is that wine, Michelle? Tell the truth.
No, but it's my favorite cup.
We all know where my head is at right now. Okay. So thank you to you both again for being here, and please do visit our website, afpccc.org. I imagine we'll be sending out information to everyone who are registered after this with an opportunity to get access to the recording and to ask any follow-up questions they might have, and for us to just let you know of some additional things we have coming up in the future. So thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa. Great. Well, without further ado, then let's get back to questions. And again, we'll answer as many as we can here, particularly general interest questions. If you have something really specific, feel free to email Michelle or me. Oh, I'm just going to share the screen real quickly here and just post this up before people leave. Just here's my information and Michelle's information right here. We'll just leave that up for a second. Actually, leave that up for a second while we're answering some questions here, just so everybody can get that. Feel free to reach out to either one of us anytime. This is all we do all day long is try to help people figure this stuff out. So we'll help you if we can. So great, let's get to a couple more questions here.
Okay, I've got a question about, are you seeing events that are, do you see a difference in events that are just running an online auction with no live stream or no auctioneer bringing in the same amount as a regular live streamed and auctioneer type of event?
I can take that.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, very much. Virtual versus online.
Yeah. So so you'll definitely make more with virtual, for sure. And you'll definitely I'm not just saying that because Keith is right here, but you'll definitely make more with virtual and a professional benefit auctioneer. So I've spent the last 90 days, I think Nancy spent the last 90 days, Keith has spent the last 90 days watching virtual events. Every single one of the successful events has a professional benefit auctioneer. I think that one main thing to think about is that, well, when this first happened, there was a lot of forgiveness. Now there's a higher expectation. And so you really have to be careful when you're doing your virtual event to do it correctly. And there's enough AV teams and companies out there that have done this right, and learn from their mistakes. I mean, learn from what's happened in the past. And we've lived and learned every single week. We live and learn, but you will make substantially more with a virtual event and a live benefit auctioneer.
It's the difference between being asked and just seeing it on a screen. And then it's you know, just seeing a button to push on a screen. It's night and day.
Yeah.
Okay. How are people securing donations for silent or live auction when our community's donors have been so greatly impacted by economic shutdown?
Yeah, I'll start with that, and then Michelle, I'd love your thoughts as well. They are, and it depends. It's a lot of it's different types of things. A lot of things, trips, dinners, unique experiences that we're trying to procure. If somebody has a house in Lake Tahoe, they still have the house in Lake Tahoe. They've given it to you every year. You can still get it. I mean, those kinds of things are definitely still happening. Obviously, getting hotel donations is difficult. Getting restaurant donations can be difficult. So I think we just need to be a little more creative. Some groups are doing fewer silent auction lots, just kind of go in that direction. Some are doing the same, or some are doing more, but some are doing fewer. And like what I said earlier, most groups are doing fewer live auction lots. Some are already doing just 4, 5, 6 events. 4, 5, 6 lots. But a lot of them are now shrinking that down. So, a lot of groups are finding, hey, it's kind of hard to get 12 live auction lots, but we only need 5 now. So, and when it kind of shakes out in a lot of cases, pretty apparent what are the 5 that you can get. So.
Yeah, and I'm seeing more of the getting creative again, but more of cooking classes through Zoom. Super fun. I just did one about a month ago. Get one of the most popular chefs in your town and see if they'll donate an hour of their time. What we did was the chef sent us a list of groceries to get. I don't think it's necessary that the organization purchases the groceries. People are fine doing that. And then everyone jumps on, you prepare your meal. We did ribs, so we jumped back on after they were done, plated our dish. The chef said, yeah, the chef stayed on with us, had a glass of wine, signed off, and we all had dinner together. So something like that's fun. I'm seeing others doing mixologist, learning how to make their favorite cocktail. I'm seeing some do brunch. Brunch is always fun. Even brunch is a great time to have a virtual event. So, and then just to extend what Keith said about the days of the events, we are seeing, if you think of your AV team or AV company, that is really your venue when you're planning your event. So a lot of people want to keep the same date that they had for their event in the fall. Well, anyone that had their event in the spring postponed to the fall. So now the fall is getting pretty saturated. So what I'm recommending to my clients is if there's any way you can get out before the end of August, early September, and then also if you are thinking about doing a virtual event, you'll want to contact an AV company and an auctioneer immediately because they are getting booked.
And also during the week is fine to do an event as well. It's not limited to Saturdays.
Yeah, you're right, Nancy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a Tuesday, Thursday. They say Thursdays, they do Saturday. But also, no one had events in the summer for fear of people going on vacation. People aren't going on vacation. So have an event in the summertime if you can. Golf tournaments. Now, virtual golf tournaments are huge right now.
That's a really good point. Summers used to be limited to the resort areas, but now you're right. No one's, because everybody assumes everybody's leaving wherever they are to the resort areas. And so they not do auctions where people live and do auctions in the more common resort areas. But like Michelle said, people aren't traveling. So we're seeing a lot more summer events. And frankly, day of the week is a big question people ask. I touched on that at the beginning. And I've had a lot of clients ask about that. Honestly, when I was with auction.com, I worked for them for 6 years and I'd actually sold a company to them. And we did a very expensive study with one of these, very highfalutin consulting companies. I think it was a 6-figure study, trying to figure out, does it matter if you do, because we had so many foreclosures. That was in the real estate auction days. We had so many foreclosures coming in. Is it better to sell on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Friday? And long story short, 6 figures later, the study came back inconclusive, which I feel like I could have told you for $10. But the reality is, anytime you hold your event, there's always going to be 1 or 2 folks who can't make it. I wish they could have been there. There's always going to be that. But most people, if they want to be at your event, they'll be there. You're always competing with something. Weeknights, you're competing with traffic. On weekends, you're competing with, other things. And I think pick the date that works best for you, move forward, and never look back, and don't second guess yourself.
Okay. I've got another one. We've got quite a few folks who are not quick on their phone. Do you have techniques for older patrons?
We do. We've got a training video. It's about 1.5 minutes, which kind of tells you how easy this is. And then we also have, we have a way for them to view the screen as well. So again, that concierge committee, I think that's a brilliant idea. But really, when someone gets on Greater Giving and just pokes around, they're good. Excuse me. Keith, do you want to continue?
Yeah, sure. No, it's you know, it's much easier than you would think that it would be. People, you know, there's fear about it, but what we found that in almost all cases, the fear is unwarranted. You know, like Michelle said, they have the video, you can do a training, you know, training Zoom call or training session. You know, it's really simple. You just, you know, if they can open a window on their phone and enter a web address, they're there, basically. So it's a lot, people are a lot afraid of that. I think that might have been something to be more afraid of 5 or 7 years ago, but now, you know, I just think even the most senior folks are comfortable with the basic things on their phone, and this is really, really basic. You okay there, Michelle?
Kinda, not really, but I'm getting
There you go. All
And
right.
then someone asked, do you mean for the event in total to be 45 minutes or just the auction part?
Yeah, no, the event in total. I mean, I think, you know, and if it's an hour, no one's going to die. But I think, you know, we did, the quickest one I've done was the whole event, including the fundraising and everything else, was 35 minutes. You know, and most of them are kind of in the 45 minutes, you know, 45, 50 minutes, and some are an hour. And I have done ones that have been over an hour, and you know, most people hang on, especially if it's a school or a really tight-knit community, you can get away with something longer. But I think you want, you know, if you could go the whole event, I mean, there aren't that many elements, right? Because you sort of, oh, actually one thing that's really important, I think Michelle should talk about, let's talk about those elements real quick so you can kind of see how we fit that in. Michelle, you wanted to talk about kind of the virtual waiting room element. So why don't you talk about that?
Oh, yeah,
and
we
then I'll
did
talk about just the
that.
basic
Yes.
elements. That's actually kind of interesting.
So I want to mention one thing before that, though, before the people sign off. So if you email me, if you would like to attend our Tuesday at 2, we go into more depth of great auction lots, timing, how things are done on the back end. This was just kind of a very high overview of how to run a virtual event. But we run this every Tuesday at 2. We'd love to have you. It's very informal, about a half-hour presentation and then Q&A, and we learn a lot from there. So email me and I'll send you an invite. So Keith, repeat that question again.
Yeah, so you know, someone was kind of asking, I think the question that they were really trying to get at is how do you fit this whole thing into 45 minutes?
Yeah.
So I want to talk real quick about the pieces, you know, and again, you can add more if you want, but the pieces, and you and I were chatting about the virtual waiting room as sort of the first piece of the event itself. So I thought I'd ask you if you'd talk about that.
Yeah. So this is very important because we saw an event that did not have a waiting room, and people were constantly, you know, texting, calling, are we in the right place? Typically people will sign out about a half hour before the event. So you want to have this virtual waiting room, and it could be just a slideshow. It could be something very simple. Your music, you want to make sure you have licensed music, because YouTube, Facebook are looking for unlicensed music and will turn you off. And so just have
some robot will turn you off. Yeah.
So you want to have a virtual slideshow, which are what we call the pre-show. It can be called a happy hour if you want, but it's about a half hour before the event. And it's really meant to just let people know that they're in the right spot. So how to bid, thanking your sponsors, photos from last year's events, nothing fancy, but just showing them that they're in the right spot. And I think that's very important.
Right, so let's say you're starting at 6 o'clock. Maybe you start that at 5:30. Totally agree. People want a spot to land so they know they're in the right place. And you know, if you can tell them, hey, the happy hour starts at 5:30. You know, it's just they can pull it up and then they can digest what information you want them to look at as well. Say you start right on time at 6 o'clock. Traditionally, the skeletal elements, the base, most important elements, you have the somebody get up there, do the welcome, the thank you, thank the sponsors. You know, probably acknowledge that, hey, this is a little different, but we're gonna have fun. Here's how we're gonna do it. Then at a bare minimum, the pieces you want, and I talk about this, those of you my clients know that I talk about this all the time, is I talk about the informational appeal and the emotional appeal. So the informational appeal, that's here's who we are, here's what we do, here's what happens if we make money, here's what happens if we don't make money, here's why you should care very deeply about what we're doing and how we're spending your money very, very carefully. And so that's sort of the informational appeal. So someone's going to give that, again, just like in an in-person event, 3, 4, 5 minutes. You know, I've seen some times you might go longer, but there's really no reason that you have to go longer. So after the introduction, someone gives the informational appeal. In most cases, then someone gives the emotional appeal. And in most cases now, these are both videos. I think in in-person events, sometimes they're speakers, sometimes they're videos, but in most cases now, there's no reason not to film it early because it's not an interactive thing. It can be on video and then you know that it's perfect. And so you have the informational appeal first, then you go to the emotional appeal, and that's less facts and figures and more the story. Somebody telling a tug at the heartstrings story, how your organization changed their life, etc. And then you go right into the fund and need, and then you go right into the live auction, and then maybe have an awards or a little bit of entertainment afterwards or something. So with those elements, you can see it's pretty easy to come in easily under an hour. If you need a couple other little speeches in there, that's fine. But I would, there's exceptions to everything, but I would avoid the 20-minute speeches. Just you're begging your people to change their.
I've seen that, and people, yeah, they drop off. They definitely drop off. But I do think, again, touching on the virtual events, people don't look into them because they think they're so expensive. But what we're finding is they're so reasonable. Yeah. And if you reach out to an AV team that you feel is expensive, call Keith, call me, yeah. And we can steer you in the right direction. Yeah. It doesn't have to be expensive, and they do a very good job. They're doing these 3 or 4 times a week now, and so we're seeing them as low as one as low as $3,500. Yeah. So,
yeah, they can fit your budget. We have people who can fit your budget. I mean, it's a very, the return on your investment, the net return is it's good. That's why people are doing this, and it's working.
And it continues to live on. So people will come back and they'll watch it and they will donate. And so we have one event in the Bay Area that has, I think it's well over 2,000 views right now. So great. It's a good investment for your organization as well.
Good point.
And I want to just chime in here with a question. What platforms have you found most successful to use for the broadcasting of these events? Zoom, Vimeo, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I have a little bit of information on that. So a lot of folks, YouTube Live seems to be a lot of people's favorites. People who are in the know that I talked about this say, now again, nothing against Facebook Live, but they say it has a lot greater delay, more latency. Everybody I've known who's used YouTube Live has had a great experience with that. Again, the producer, they produce it on their real-time video editing software, and then they shoot the feed up to one or several of these platforms. Vimeo, I think, does a great job as well. YouTube Live, does well. And a lot of times groups, maybe they'll embed, I'm not exactly sure how this works, but they'll embed the Vimeo platform into a customized landing page on their company website. You can do things like that. So people can, go to your company website, and that's the first thing they'll see. So because a lot of people want to drive traffic to their website. So there's various ways you can do it, but that seems to go well. Zoom is really a separate thing. Like Zoom is more, Zoom is more it's sort of a creation and broadcasting tool combined. And as such, it's probably the most affordable. I mean, a month subscription to the advanced form of Zoom, you'll need probably what, $150, $179, something like that. I mean, it's really, really inexpensive. And that's what Michelle's talking about. If budget is a super big deal for you, you can produce a pretty nice looking event on Zoom. A lot of people want something a little more professional looking, maybe a little more customized, and so they're going outside of that. But
we just had an attendee write in. It says YouTube Live is great because there is a premiere feature and you can set a time for it to play in advance. Thank you, Wendy.
Great, thank you.
Good to know.
Okay, what is the attendance rate like for virtual galas and fundraisers? Are the tickets scaled down to reflect that the virtual gala doesn't offer a sit-down meal and activities usually associated with galas? And my question is, are people selling tickets or just having their guests register for free?
Yeah, I addressed that a little earlier. In fact, I can kind of go back to that real quick. I think we talked about that right.
I could touch on that too, Keith. So what I'm seeing is if you're not offering something to your guest, if it's just the virtual event, they're not charging. But if you are offering, I have this one great event here in Oregon in the wine country, Bounty for the county. So they are charging X number of dollars for the ticket, and then they're having a pickup party. So the guest is coming in and picking up dinner, they're picking up their wine, and I don't know if they have anything else along those lines, but that's really the only time we're seeing a guest or a charge for a ticket.
Yeah, and as a result, I think attendance is pretty good. Again, I feel like schools and large, at least a third of our clients are schools, and for schools, your parents are kind of going to do whatever you tell them to do. So I think there's a lot of school auction attendees who probably aren't on the benefit auction circuit, but they go to their kid's school's auction. They'll do whatever you want, but again, those might also be the kind of people look at it and go, I'm not paying $150 a ticket just to go log online for 45 minutes. And so
they won't do it.
Yeah, I think they won't do. I agree that they won't do it. So Unless you're offering something, most groups are not charging ticket price.
So I did see organization that their wine donor said, keep it, that's fine. And what they did was they sold a red, a white, and a rosé package, and they had a pickup party for that. And they did have a ticket sale. But unless you're offering something, I haven't really seen anyone do that.
Yep, agreed.
Okay, how is the pre-recorded or live show incorporated into the Greater Giving platform to create a virtual event?
Want to take that one, Keith?
Yeah, sure. So basically, as I said on my past screen, we're talking about a two-screen solution right here. And I can go back and find that screen, but you have one kind of screen for watching, and then your mobile phone, which is going to be usually a TV or a laptop or a desktop computer, and then one screen for bidding. If you wanted to watch them on the same screen and quote unquote incorporate them, you can open two windows on your computer screen very easily and see the watch in on one side and bid there with your mouse on the other side. So it incorporates well, but I think it's important if you think about it. There's really two elements that you're worried about, which are the watching and the bidding.
Yeah, it is two devices. There's no way around that right now at this moment. But yeah, you're using two devices, which doesn't seem to be an issue.
Okay, what type of entertainment have you seen added to a virtual gala? And basically, how are you keeping your attendees engaged for the 45 to 60 minutes?
Great, I'll start there. That is sort of the core of what this is, right? Because how do you keep it exciting, entertaining? I have a lot of clients saying, how do you keep it engaging? There's a number of things we're doing. I did one event where they had a speed painter who came in, and actually we acted like it was live, but actually was delayed. Sorry, anybody who watched that. Excuse me, actually it was videoed, pre-videoed, I mean. And so, so right in the middle, we had to start a speed paint. You did speed painting for 2 minutes, and then we came back at the end. Hey, once we're done with the fundraising, we didn't verbalize it this way, but once we're done with the fundraising, you get to see him finish the painting, and then we sold that painting in the live auction. Once we finished the funding, we sold that painting, which was pretty exciting. So that's one good idea. Actually, I'm working with another speed painter out of Florida who's just done a great job kind of getting that taken care of and sort of incorporating really exciting speed painting show into it. A lot of groups having bands. A lot of groups do their awards later. I think definitely you want to do the fundraising first. And we usually talk about, if I had a bumper sticker on my car, I would say, get the money early. That's what, even in the in-person world, I was a proponent of that. Not too early, but the right degree of early. I think when you go virtual, you really want to get the fundraising early, because frankly, if we get the fundraising done in minute 35, I mean, I hope people hang on to watch the entertainer, but to be honest, I'm not that concerned with it. I mean, the big concern is, are we raising your money? And up through that point, is it fun? So I think a lot of it is be efficient, don't waste people's time, and then I think there's a number of different things, be it a band, a speed paint, or whatever that you can add. Have you seen other fun things, Michelle?
Yeah, I have. So I've seen, mostly it's local entertainment that I've seen, but I've seen other fun ways to get and keep your guests engaged. One was a selfie scavenger hunt. I thought that was very clever.
Huh.
So what they did was they had a list of things on the scavenger hunt. Maybe it was 5 or 6. And they checked it, you were able to check them off, but you were able to also, they had a hashtag, of course, and they posted on Facebook. But once you did this, if you were able to check off all 6 boxes or however many boxes, you were entered into a drawing for a weekend, and I'm making this up, but let's say a weekend in Lake Tahoe. It's something that was very appealing for most of the guests. So I thought that was very fun. We've seen bingo. We've seen, I think most of it is more of just the wall of wine, choosing the wall of the wall of wine, wall of whiskey, of course. But most entertainment is done through local entertainment, I believe, for most of the virtual
I've seen comedians too. Sometimes you have a comedian at the end.
Yeah.
Some kind of exclusive content.
We saw one that they had their, I don't know who he was exactly, but he was involved with the organization. And he was doing, he was portraying Jimmy Fallon. And he had the desk and had the cards. He was writing the thank you letters. And it was just done very, very well. Comedy clubs, those are fun too.
Yeah. So, but I think that's important, but I also think being efficient, people, the reality is most people are not going to come to your event for the entertainment. Some might if your entertainment's good enough, but most are going there because they support your organization and they want to help. So I think mostly we're pushing for people to be efficient and get your fundraising taken care of.
Yeah. half hour, 30 minutes.
Okay, and are people still having luck with bringing in sponsors, and how are sponsors promoted?
Yeah, so just that a little earlier too. Sponsors are a big important part. Getting sponsorships have always been a big important part for a lot of events. Often schools and other events, not so much. The only thing I can really say is you got to keep trying. I mean, you just got to keep asking. Your hit ratio might not be as high, or maybe it will be. Who knows? Maybe no one's asking them now, so they're getting so they're willing to donate. Do you have any more thoughts on that, Michelle? I mean, really,
yeah.
you
I
just got
talk
to
to people
try it.
about
You got to keep making it happen.
sponsors all day, every day. What we're finding is, of course, there are sponsors that are going to have to pull out and not be a sponsor, but most of them are staying. And you have to remember too, some people are doing very well during this time. And so they're able to remain a sponsor, but there's no better way to give your sponsor exposures than on the online bidding platform. It's everywhere. It's, every 5 tiles with your silent auction, you could put another sponsor logo. It's listed all over the online bidding platform, on your website, on your thermometer. And so the sponsorship exposure, I feel, is far greater than an actual in-person event. We've seen people get creative where they're asking their sponsor to actually sponsor a live auction lot. So brought to you by, let's say, Alaska Airlines. And so they're buying the live auction lot, and that's their sponsorship. So they're getting thanked for being a sponsor, but also thanked for sponsoring that live auction lot.
Good point.
Okay, what would be an example of VIP access in a virtual event in terms of value for ticket sale price?
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
You know what, VIP, I think, is just, they have first access, but really that doesn't work with a virtual event because they could do a max bid and somebody can come in and outbid them. So you might want to have something that's just, usually what I'm seeing for VIP is more of offering the food, the wine.
Yeah, I was going to say deliveries. Yeah, food,
Yeah.
wine, a gift bag, things like that. Maybe I have one event that they're talking about. It's a professional sports team that's a client. They're talking about maybe 30 minutes beforehand, you get a small, limited to 20 or 25 people, talk with the coach. Only folks who pay kind of get to go in that, and it's actually you get to ask questions to the coach or a player or something like that. So if you have some kind of access to somebody that folks might want to talk to that they couldn't just talk to in normal day life, that's another way to look at it. But really, you need to add, you need to add something.
One thing I want to say too, with virtual swag bags, I'm seeing a lot of those. There's companies out there that do it, but you don't need to go through a company. You could do it on your own. So when you're talking with sponsors, ask them, is there anything that they would like to donate to each one of the guests? So they can have, let's just say it's a, Star Cycle. Star Cycle gives you a code in your virtual swag bag. You put that code in on their website and you get 2 free rides. So it's a way to also give back to the sponsors in turn. So I'm seeing more and more of those, getting creative. Don't have to pay for it. Just go and create it yourself and then send it out as a URL.
Okay, this is an age-old question. Should you include values of packages or not? What are the pros and cons of either idea?
Yeah, I'll talk to that. So, good question. So I don't think my answer to that differs. I'm thinking about that. I don't think it differs for a live event, an in-person event, or a virtual event. Most of the time, I probably do not like putting, well, actually, that's not true. Here's what I say in the in-person world, and then let's go to the virtual. In person, I like having values in the catalog, and I like having values, in any kind of pre-marketing materials or whatever. I don't like having values right there while people are bidding, like if we're in an in-person event on the slide behind, because I think it creates a ceiling. I think it has potential to create a ceiling. So since the value is going to be sitting right there while people are bidding, in most cases, I would not put the value there. Now, where you might want to put the value is if it's something where people have no idea what value it is. For example, any jewelry or anything. Like I could look at a diamond ring and I don't know if it's worth $50 or $500 or $5,000 or $50,000 or $500,000, right? I mean, I have no idea. You kind of have to put the value there. I think most people are going to discount and assume it's quote unquote the super retail kind of value. But generally speaking, I'm a I'm a fan of putting out the values before, because I think it's less disingenuous, if that's a term. I'm not a big fan of putting the values out there while people are actually bidding, because I think it's very hard to get someone to go to 3,250 when it says literally right next to where they're bidding, value 3,000, right? Kind of same thing if it's on the screen behind me in an in-person event and I'm saying I've got 3,000 for 3,250, people are going to be self-conscious about going to 3,250. It says value 3,000. That said, I don't think you have that effect if they've seen it beforehand, that's kind of a complex answer and a nuanced answer, but that's how I feel about it.
Okay, how does a live auction work with bidding in the room and online?
Yeah, so I am super excited to do that. I'm not sure too many folks have done that yet in the benefit world. The good news is, again, I worked in the real estate auction industry for 6 years. So many of my auctioneers work in estates and cars and liquidations. And that technology has been around forever. There's a number of different ways to do it, and it's pretty exciting. So I'm doing an event for a PBS station coming up here in a little bit, and they're going to have, basically they've got phone bids, they've got actually people that are manning the phones, and they've got people there manning the computers. And so when they get a bid, they're going to raise their hand right there. So to me, you know, whether I'm looking around in the room or whether I got a bid right there, I can just kind of take that bid. So the other way to do it is you have a screen. Second choice is on my phone. Better case is you have a big screen TV right under the camera. So it looks like I'm actually looking just a little south of the camera, but it looks like I'm looking at the camera. So I can kind of see that. And I'm kind of looking at the room and looking around. I've got John, I've got bid number 114 right there at 3,500 coming back into 4,000. 4,000 right there, 4,000 on the internet or 4,000, you can kind of see it right there on the screen. So it's either going to be people bidding on behalf of your phone or internet bidders, or have a screen there that I can look at. But technology like Greater Giving, and it's very well set up to do that. It's just, we just sort of need to get where we can kind of gather groups again. And then I think frankly, a lot of events, I think that's going to be a very common methodology going forward.
Could you briefly discuss proxy bidding, which is kind of in relation with a virtual event? Yeah,
Michelle, why don't you address that?
So you can do proxy bidding because you're able to do what's called the max bid feature. And so you definitely want to have someone that is a moderator, I would say, or an administrator is a better word. So the administrator will be able to, just like you would with a live event, reach out to that donor. Most people, when you're doing a proxy bid, they'll ask your administrator will ask them how far they'd like to go. And same type of situation, you still would have to have somebody reach out to them, but they can put their max bid in, which will increment bid up for Keith to see. So Keith will say, okay, now Nancy's in the lead, now Michelle's back for the Lake Tahoe package, now Nancy, now Michelle. So it is more exciting, and it's easier to proxy bid when you're using Greater Giving for the virtual event.
Right, and the max bid feature, keep in mind, it only goes up to one bid higher than the existing bid up to whatever limit you set. So if you said I'd pay up, if you say your max bid at $5,000 and Michelle, and say we're going in 250 increments and we're at 3,000, the max bid would automatically kick in there at 3,250. And that's going to be the winning bid unless either someone else bids at 3,500 or has a max bid at 3,500 or higher. In which case, if you've got two people with max bids, then it just goes and it just rattles right up there. So that's probably the easiest way, because then they can just enter their own credit card information and kind of get all set up beforehand. But also, the individual organization could always look. If you got somebody who says, no, I don't want a max bid for whatever reason, I'm out of town, just, you can get a power of attorney and they can assign somebody the right to bid a certain amount and that person can bid on their behalf. It's kind of the same as at an in-person gala.
Okay, and is Greater Giving used with a virtual paddle raise only without an auction? Kind of a text to donate type thing?
Don't answer that, Michelle. No, I'm kidding.
Wait, okay, tell me say it one more time, Nancy.
Can Greater Giving be used for just a virtual paddle raise and not even an auction?
Oh yeah, there's so much flexibility. But then you really have to do that work. You have to do the pre-commitments. So with any fund you need, whether it's virtual, online, just simply using Greater Giving with what we call online payments and our giving board, there's a lot of work that goes into that. So you still have to get your pre-commitments. You have to have your matches. I think the reason people are doing so well is they are getting creative. But again, it's still not going to do as well as if you had your virtual event with your auctioneer.
Sure. To dive down into the specific components, my take is, I'm guessing if you know, and frankly, we had a lot of clients who did that. You know, a lot of them already had their greater giving loaded up. You know, say their event was going to be late March, right? And then all of a sudden the shutdown, they didn't really have time to pivot or put together a virtual event, but they're like, look, everything's already donated into our greater giving software anyway. So they would just put that online. You know, I think your sound auction, your online auction probably will do about the same. If you can get the same number of people there, that'll probably do about the same. Where you're going to suffer a lot is in your fund and need. And your live auction, obviously, well, you're not doing a live auction in that case, so you don't have those lots getting the attention and the focus that they would get in a live auction. But really, your fund and need. If you just stick a donate now button, it's just not going to do well without an auctioneer, somebody who knows how to ask for money. They're drawing attention to that, you know, reiterating why this is important, you know, acknowledging people who are the high bidders. I mean, that's sort of the process, what we're doing. You know, there's a number of different things we do, 3 or 4 or 5 things that we're doing while, you know, in the 7 to 12 minutes that we're asking for money. You know, it's those little things you're doing, acknowledging the bidders, you know, referring back to the mission, referring back to things we've heard of earlier, you know, explaining how to do the bidding, kind of working that in a seamless way really encourages much more funny bidding that you're just not going to get if you just stick a button there and hope people push it.
Okay, if we are able to gather in the spring, would you recommend having an online auction along with the live event? What about the live auction?
Yeah, so that's pulling up our crystal ball again.
Yeah.
And, I think most of our clients are kind of, you know, some are making a choice. Some are saying, look, we just need to nail it down right now, so we're going virtual. A lot of our clients, you know, in groups have signed up saying, hey, you know, we're happy to, you know, obviously we're hoping we can do an in-person event. If we can't, we'll do a hybrid. And if we can't do that, we'll do a virtual. At this point, especially if you're coming up in the spring, it's a lot of the same steps you would be doing now. The steps you'd be doing now anyway for an in-person event are the exact same steps you'd be doing for a virtual event. And so I think groups are you know, a lot of groups are kind of staying open to that. You know, you kind of need to figure out for yourself. I'm going to say it's 2 or 3 months out. Some groups might say it's got to be quicker than that, particularly if you have a, you know, a traveling or an international group coming in or something like that. But figure out, you know, in your plan, figure out, okay, what's our drop dead decision for, hey, we've just got to look at what we are allowed to and what we think our people will be comfortable doing today. And that's what we're going to do with, you know, we're going to, you know, find the line where we need to be being conservative and draw the line of our drop dead date where we got to decide exactly what we're doing. And then, you know, and then up till that point, just kind of parallel process, because it's really sort of the same kind of work you're doing.
And same question along those lines. If our indoor gala is in early March 2021, do you think we should make the call to do a virtual fundraiser now?
So if it was my event, I wouldn't, because I'm optimistic. You know, a lot of folks, Fauci and again, now we're getting into what you're reading and who even knows what's true anymore. But, you know, a lot of folks I think we might have a vaccine by the end of the year, and, you know, or, you know, things can happen. I mean, again, it might be 5 months, it might be 5 years. I mean, who knows? If it was my event, I would plan for a live in-person auction. Also, I think that's just going to be exciting to people. I mean, it's exciting anyway, but I think a lot of folks are looking forward to getting back and seeing their friends and putting on their, you know, cocktail attire and the whole thing. And so if it was my event, I would parallel process, because I would, you know, plan, say, hey, if we can, we're going to do a live event. But if we need to do it, you know, hybrid, we'll do it, and shrink it down and do it hybrid, we'll do that. If it needs to be virtual, we'll do that. And kind of, because it's not that much extra work at this point to parallel process. And then I'd probably kind of look towards the fall, starting November, December. I'd be like, all right, where are we? We got to start thinking about pulling the trigger. And because I'm optimistic by then, we'll know a lot more. We'll either be like, hey, it looks like we're almost out of the woods. You know, we've got the vaccine. People feel it's safe. We're going to do it. You know, we're going to be in good shape. Or it's going to be like, we're in the second wave. Look, we've got to go virtual. But I don't think you're too late converting to virtual for a March event in November or December at all. What would you say, Michelle? We haven't talked about this.
I would say that what I'm hearing and what I'm recommending is for fall or for spring events. It just, again, it depends on that vaccine. But if you're going to go ahead and plan for an in-person event, always make sure you have some component. So you have a hybrid event for those guests that are hesitant to come to the event. So elderly, underlying conditions, because you don't want to exclude anyone.
That's actually a really good point. So I was thinking from the what are we allowed to do perspective, but you're right. You know, there's going to be some people, you know, not even anti-vaxxers, but people who aren't comfortable taken the vaccine, or don't feel that it's proven out yet or whatever, or don't want to take it, or took it and don't trust it, or for whatever reason. I think a lot of folks, you know, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to start thinking, hey, we're either going to do a hybrid event or a virtual. The only difference between a in-person and a hybrid might be just you have a camera crew there and you're broadcasting to the internet, and we can take bids on the internet as well. Which again, Greater Giving use a lot of the same, you know, in the Greater Giving space, it's the same technology. So.
But before, in January, when everything was normal, everyone that had Greater Giving online bidding was doing that anyway. They were opening up their silent auction 5 days before their event, because there's no downside to pre-bidding.
True.
And then they would go into their live event and close at the night of the event. But of course, do their live. We highly, highly recommend you never ever do your fund to need with online bidding. You'll always make more money with a benefit auctioneer and a physical paddle raise. So you can do a hybrid for your silent. You'll always make more money with that, live with your auctioneer, and then of course the fund to need with the auctioneer as well.
I always say if someone can't justify our fee, you know, by the value we bring to the fund, by having someone there, a professional asking for money, I need to fire myself and get a new job. So haven't had to do that yet, so hopefully we can keep that going on.
Well, if any of you need to see a video of Keith, Keith has got more energy than me and my 2 yellow labs. So, and yeah, completely, you do, but you do a very, very good job.
Thank you. So good. What's next, Nancy?
Okay, just have a few more. Would you recommend using consignment packages?
I'd love to address that. Yeah, great question. So I like a lot of professional benefit auctioneers. I have a mixed relationship with consignment. I always say I like 10% of consignment. I think there's too much consignment out there that's too expensive, that at the end of the day, you don't end up with enough money left over. That said, I think there are some consignment companies and pieces, and particularly trips out there, that are spectacular. I think they present a great value. We can consistently make a significant amount above the cost and do just fine. And so I say consignment, and then the other advantages of consignment are, one, you know exactly what it is. The service is going to be good. You can sell it multiple times is the big thing. You know, say we've got this great trip to Mexico that the cost is only $1,000. We can easily, it's 7 days at a 4-star resort. It's gorgeous. You get to pick one of 5 resorts. We can usually sell it for $2,000 and very often sell it 5, 10, 15. Our record is 26 times. And, so you sell it for $2,000, the cost is $1,000, you keep $1,000. That can be pretty exciting. And particularly if you put it, now that we're doing the fund and need first, a lot of people are worried about with consignment is, if you do your live first, it's going to cannibalize from my fund and need, which there might be some value to that. But if you do your fund and need first, and then do 3 or 4 live auction lots, and then even have, a really good consignment trip you can sell multiples of last, well, those people are 5 minutes away from logging off anyway. They're not giving you any more money, so why not have a high quality consignment lot? See if we can sell it 7 times, make an extra $7,000 bucks. It takes an extra 2 or 3 minutes. Why not? So the short answer is I like the right consignment for the right groups.
Okay. And Pamela Werner just wanted to throw this in. She said, we made $190,000 last year. The record before was $55,000 when using KLM. So with KLM, they tripled their revenue.
That is so nice of you to share that, Pam. Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you the other day, and I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Hope you're still on.
Okay.
Are you still on, Keith? What if you and me and Nancy are the only ones still on?
You might be. Hey, that's okay.
And I feel like
Maybe
all
we
these
need to practice.
questions all these questions seem to be sort of repeats, but have you noticed a difference between revenue between shelter-in-place webcast versus soundstage?
Great question. And I'd love to hear your answer, Michelle. I'll answer first. I have not. So, I think, it's largely just what kind of feel and look do you want? But I have not. I've had, again, we've had, successful events and pretty much nothing but successful events in both formats. So, I think some groups cost is always an issue. They're bored or whatever. They're just so worried about cost. Well, then you might want to do the shelter in place model. Other groups, now that we're opening up, are the kind of groups who are going to have their event at a, fancy hotel in San Francisco. They're really worried about their brand and how this looks. And you know, they realized that in some cases, to get the big donations from the big spenders, you got to really create an elegant event, and that might be more nicer to have a soundstage event. So, but I have looked at that, and I have not noticed a difference from one to the other. Have you, Michelle? Have you either looked at it or seen it?
Not really. My advice is just, you know, you have to customize it to your budget, of course, and to the and what you think that your donors would like. But I have seen some that try and do it yourself, and they put so much work and effort into it, and then it just doesn't go well.
Right.
So,
well, I'd love to address that. We've seen do-it-yourself can go one of two ways, and by that I mean, hey, you're doing it on Zoom, let's say, and you have somebody in your organization producing it. It can go one of two ways. You know, I've seen terrible, horrific examples of that. And then the other problem is, if you're the group that does the horrible do-it-yourself model, then you're circulated around the internet as the example of how not to do this. You don't want to be that organization, right? So I get those emails, and they're kind of sometimes wince-worthy. So you don't want to do that. That said, I have had my first two events, in fact, that came out right, you know, pretty close to right after things shut down, were Zoom events. They self-produced. I mean, the cost is almost nothing, right? I mean, it's, you know, $150, $200 for the Zoom for the month-long subscription, and I think you need to pay a little extra to open it up to more than a certain amount of people. But we're talking a few $100. I mean, it's really, really low cost. And yeah, they were a little, you know, they were kind of folksy, is probably the way I'd put it. But, you know, and by the way, I didn't really get into this because we didn't have time, but in a Zoom call, you can do it two ways. You can do webinar style like this, where you can only see the presenters, or you can do it real meeting style, where you can sometimes see the presenters, but you can also open it up to seeing everybody. One of these events, they opened it up to see everybody, and it was lovely. I mean, everybody loves seeing, hey, there's Jim, how you doing? You know, comment section going crazy, and, you know, maybe you don't have to open up the sound to everybody because that'd just be a complete cluster, but you open up the video to everybody, and it was, you know, it was the host or the MC who's, you know, the director of development there, who knows everybody. It was a relatively small event, knows everybody. Jim, so glad to see you there. You know, it was lovely. And I thought for school, it was exactly perfectly what they needed. It was almost no cost. They blew last year's goal out of the water. You know, it was a smaller event. I think last year, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think last year, the Fun and Me alone made 60, and this year, the night of, we closed with 68, but I think they made more money, probably 10 or 20% more, even in the days after. So they probably ended up about 75,000. So what, 25% better than they'd done last year with zero cost. I mean, with almost zero cost. It was lovely. So there's definitely choices depending on kind of what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, and kind of segueing into that, can you share what you've seen as far as cost of throwing a virtual event versus cost of throwing a traditional event?
Yeah, so a lot of that is, you know, it's revenue and cost, right? And a lot of groups are thinking, you know, some groups, for example, if you get your venue donated, or if you're doing your venue or your event in your own space, funny, sometimes that can be a lot cheaper. Sometimes it's more if you need a tent or something like that. So really what I would do if it was I would look at it, you know, normally I always like starting events with not in the hole, right? So you always, as a fundamental rule for in-person events, you want to start with at least your sponsorships and your ticket prices, at the very least paying your cost of your food and your venue and those kinds of things. I'd kind of look at it the same way, you know, figure out, you know, they're depending on the kind of event you want to do, there's either going to be very little cost, or relative to a venue and food, it's still, if it's $5,000 or $10,000, that's still significantly less cost. You know, and then are you able to, but you're probably not getting ticket revenue, and then kind of look at what kind of sponsor revenue, and then really it just comes down to the math, you know, looking at the revenue side and the cost side and kind of seeing, you know, where it shakes out. I think a lot of groups are finding it's kind of in the neighborhood of 6 of one, half a dozen the other. Either we tickets and sponsorships, but all that money goes towards the venue and the food and the booze, or, you know, we don't sell tickets, we sell a lot for your sponsorships, but we don't need as much money to pay for a virtual auction. So it's kind of a lot of groups finding to watch. Michelle, what have you seen there?
Shoot, I was answering the next question. Sorry.
No problem. Just what are you seeing as far as in terms of cost? Are you seeing it as more expensive net or less expensive with a virtual event?
Less.
Yeah.
Or less. So there's this question here I want to answer, Nancy, so sorry.
Go ahead, please.
But it's about item pickup, and I think that's important. So item pickup depends on, of course, the regulations in your county. And so with Greater Giving, you can send out a text message saying item pickup is in front of such and such office from 1 to 6 on Sunday. But the other main thing I want to make sure we mention is that because you're reaching a broader audience, you definitely want to make it known or make it clear that if somebody, let's say I buy something from an event in Sacramento, I'm, Guide Dogs for the Blind, and I buy this beautiful piece of art, I surely don't expect Guide Dogs for the Blind to ship that to me. And so you want to have that covered by UPS ground shipping, which is the most inexpensive, and you can actually add that to their receipt after you take it to UPS and figure out exactly how much it is. But you want to put that in your terms and conditions or policies and procedures, that the successful bidder is responsible for the shipping and handling, because you don't want to get stuck with the, whatever it may be. Even if it's $20, you don't want to get stuck with that. And people don't mind if they're buying something like that. They're not going to balk at that. They're going to expect that. And another, to tag on to that, another thing that that Sandifer was mentioning is that because of shipping and handling and because of the times that we're in right now, they took a picture of the auction lot and uploaded it to Greater Giving, and then they asked the donor to ship it directly from their store. So let's say it's a bike. So Bike Gallery is just going to ship it directly to the winning bidder. So taking out the middleman. I thought that was a great idea.
Cool.
Okay.
So what are we at right now? We're at 5:51.
We're almost 8 or
Okay.
6 rather.
Yeah, maybe we push another 10 minutes or so, just to, I think
Okay,
that's
fine.
reasonable. Great. I see a couple that I'd love to answer here.
Go ahead.
Real quick. So Melissa, you asked, our auction specialist, and by the way, hopefully if you're still here with us, thanks for hanging out. Are you seeing a difference? Are auction specialists creating these video feeds for their clients? Is this an additional consideration? Yeah, so usually most of these companies you hire, pretty much all of them, if you're hiring sort of a switcher or a producer, they'll for additional, usually it's additional fee, they can easily make your videos there. That's most of them, that's what they do, which is why they know how to use the software and why they have the switching software. Anyway, and then the one other one I want to answer is, are you seeing a difference in the live auction revenue if the bidding is done in a chat window via or in text or directly into Greater Giving? So I'll address that. I don't know that I've seen a difference in revenue because I've done both and the revenue is good in all of them. What I will say is you really need to be prepared. If you're doing it in chat, the big thing about a software like Greater Giving that I like is people have their credit cards in beforehand. Once they bid, you have their money. And I can't stress this enough. What you don't want to do, in most cases, I've had one client said, hey, I'm going to be calling anybody after the auction anyway. I don't mind calling and chasing down all the donations afterwards. Most groups would rather bang your head against the wall than, call 150 donors the next day and say, by the way, you have to pay us. And that's the big problem with doing it in chat. Trust me, there's a story of an event going around. I know the auctioneer who will remain nameless. He had an event, they did all the bidding in the chat. This was real early, it came on. Their event, in the chat, they raised $900,000, which you can say, wow, that's a great number. A month later, they'd collected $800,000. So you could say, hey, they collected $800,000, that's great. I'm sure as a director of development, you're gonna look at this and going, we had $100,000 we didn't collect. That's the problem of doing it in chat, is just you're gonna have loss. It's gonna be a ton more work and you're gonna have loss. That's why I've done that and it can work okay. It can work fine, but for most clients, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, that's a reconciliation nightmare, because in chat, you don't even know who they are. Sometimes
right. Big Daddy McLane or Big Daddy Mac bids $500. Well, who the heck is Big Daddy Mac? Like, you don't even know.
Right. Okay, so AFP is asking us to wrap it up with maybe 2 more questions.
Great. Go ahead, Nancy, you pick.
Well, okay, hold on. I was answering another one. Okay, basically, I've gotten a few that what types of silent and live auction items are selling the best now.
Yep. I'll address that. From my perspective, it's kind of the same types of things: trips, dinners, unique experiences. We kind of addressed this earlier, but certain trips I would not, I think international trips are harder. Places that have high instances of COVID probably would be a little insensitive. Cruises, again, would not the end of the world, but would just feel a little tone deaf. But I think it's still trips, dinners, unique experiences, and as Michelle addressed earlier, online experiences, online cooking classes, and online, brunch, things like that are probably the new additions.
So I can tell you for sure. So what's selling well is private dinners. So if you did the Zoom cooking class or mini gatherings, wine is selling huge.
Booze always does well.
Huge. And also home and garden, because people are more at home more now. So they're realizing, I want a pretty garden, or I want a raised bed, and things like that. So home and garden is doing very well also.
Check your state and county city laws for booze. Some groups have, some municipalities have restrictions selling booze online, so just be sure you're okay there.
So I have, if anybody wants that, you can email me. I have the ABC liquor license for selling it online as well. So I'm happy to send that out.
Great.
If you need that. But I think yeah, those are the key top 3, I would say.
Okay. Last one.
Okay, last one. I don't know if we can answer these. I don't know if we're going to be able to get the questions and then answer the ones that we did not answer.
Yeah, I'm taking screenshots and I'll be able to respond back to the people that we didn't answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
What are people thinking about air travel now for auction lots?
Yeah, so, I think people are fired up to do air travel, not today, but I think everybody, most people I think feel fired up that it will come back at some point, and we're just seeing you want a long tail. You want a long, if it has to be used this year, I would not sell it. I'd hold it, or find another way to monetize it. I wouldn't put it in your auction. But if it can be used till at least the end of 2021, preferably the end of 2022 or longer, I think, air travel, particularly domestic air travel, people can't wait. So I've sold some trips where people need to fly and they're doing fine.
Yeah, I think that's what vacations too. They're asking donors, our organizations are asking the donors if they'll extend it for 2 years, and most of them are saying yes, they're fine with that. And then they're selling because the extension is for 2 years.
Yep.
Okay, and then people are asking for a copy of Keith's PowerPoint. Are we sending that out?
Of course, yes, happy to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll talk to the AFP folks. We'll figure out how to do a link or what, I think probably posting and doing a link to that or something would be the right way to do it. So we'll get that done.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. So great. Actually, what I'll probably do is put on the KLM, always klmauctions.com, or if you, just open a window and search, Bay Area Charity Auctioneer, Sacramento Fundraising Auctioneer, anything like that, I usually come up towards the top. And they basically, my past blog posts on virtual auctions that have some more detail on this, future blog posts, and I think I'll put this, we'll figure out how to, if I can figure out, put my PowerPoint slides there too, will be linked, will be on the klmauctions.com website. So I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay, that was it.
That's it. All 6 people of you who stuck with us for 2 hours, thank you so much.
I bet there's 4.
Speaking of losing, I'm sure we started with, they said over 200 folks, which is fantastic. That's an AFP CCC record. But those of you stuck with us, thank you so much. Again, if there's anything else we can do, by all means, let us know. We'll answer the questions that didn't get answered on a one-on-one basis. Here's our contact information in case you want to see that. AFP folks want to come in and close us out here as we approach the 2-hour mark?
Yeah, absolutely. On behalf of the California Capital Chapter, thank you so much, Michelle and Keith, and with support from Nancy, we really appreciate everything that you did to make this a successful webinar. And thank you to everybody who attended, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.